There has been talk of the casting of the Fantastic Four characters over the last few years, ever since Marvel Studios announced that they were going to be working on a new version of the Fantastic Four. Now, with the iconic family, Marvel's first family as it's often called, we have had some casting rumours surrounding the film for quite some time. But with the iconic heroes, there's also the introduction of one of Marvel's most iconic villains ever made, and that is Doctor Doom. And according to some sources now, Marvel has approached several actors for the role, and 3 names have come to my attention. One of them is Jason Clarke, the other is Ralph Fiennes, and the other, who I really hope ends up getting cast in the iconic villain role of Doctor Doom, is Mads Mikkelsen. As many of you are aware, Mads Mikkelsen was already the villain in the first Doctor Strange movie, portraying the villain Kaecillius. And I think Mads Mikkelsen is such a fantastic actor, and I think he was wasted in that movie, and the fact that they would go on to cast him in a minor role in Doctor Strange as a minor villain who no one had ever heard of, and not cast him as an iconic villain like Doctor Doom, was an absolute travesty. And considering that he's already appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe before, many people thought this threw him out of contention for any future role. But with these reports, I'm quite hopeful that Mads Mikkelsen will take on the role of Doctor Doom. Marvel could easily just retcon the fact that Kaecillius was always Doctor Doom and somehow lean that into the overall story, and the fact that we've got these multiverse stories happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this time, they could borrow from that to make it plausible. However, I don't think they even need to do that. Just bring him back as the character and don't mention that Mads Mikkelsen played Kaecillius before. I don't think it matters. I think people will get over it and people won't be bothered by it. Mads is such a fantastic actor. He's done these great roles over the years, not just in Hollywood movies, but has starred in a lot of Danish cinema where he has portrayed great characters, and he just shows off his ability to be such a fine actor. That being said, he has also portrayed villains so well. My first introduction to him as an actor was in 2006's Casino Royale, where he played the villain Le Chiffre. He was absolutely fantastic in that role, and he went on to play other iconic villains since. Notably, one of the most iconic villains he has played on the small screen was Hannibal Lecter. I think if you've seen the Hannibal movies and then you compare Mads Mikkelsen's portrayal on television to Anthony Hopkins' portrayal in those films, it's quite difficult to juggle those, but I think Mads Mikkelsen brings something so different to what Anthony Hopkins brought to the role, and I think Mads Mikkelsen really stood out as such this cunning, intelligent, and super evil character. So when we see him appear as Kaecillius in Doctor Strange, where he's not given too much to do, and I think Marvel Studios over the years has always had a problem with their villains. They have got better in some of the projects, but I think Marvel are very safe when they do these films, and they don't want the villain outshining the hero in any way. So whereas you compare any Marvel Studios film to something like Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, the Joker is far more interesting as a character than Batman in that movie, and you just engage with that character in a very different way as you do to the hero. But when it comes to like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a lot of the villains seem to be a dark interpretation of the hero, like a mirror image of them. In Iron Man 1, we see Ironmonger is just an evil Iron Man. In Doctor Strange, when we've got Kaecillius, it's just an evil Doctor Strange, basically. Even Loki is just like the evil version of a Norse god. But all the great villains have a great deal of depth to them, and you've almost got to understand the point of view that they have and why they have this worldview. Looking at the X-Men movies, Ian McKellen's portrayal as the villain Magneto, you do understand his point of view, but you still understand that he is a villain. But you do have some sympathy for him, and you understand why his experiences have created this worldview for him. And honestly, that's what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has lacked. There are some standouts. I do think Loki is a good villain, even though he is like this dark mirror image of Thor. I did think that Baron Zemo in Captain America Civil War was a very good villain. And looking at someone like Willem Dafoe's portrayal as the Green Goblin in Spider-Man No Way Home, and even looking back to him in the Raimi trilogy, or even Vincent D'Onofrio's role as the Kingpin in the Netflix's Daredevil series. I think he's a great villain, and all the ones I've mentioned stand out above the generic sort of cookie-cutter villain that is portrayed in most of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I do think that Mads Mikkelsen deserves a second chance at a great villain. The role of Kaecillius was clearly beneath him. I am aware that Mads Mikkelsen actually auditioned for the role of Reed Richards in the original Fantastic Four movie that ended up going to actor Ewan Griffiths. And before any of you say anything, yes, that's how his name is pronounced. And he also reportedly was called in to audition for the role of Doctor Doom back with the Josh Trank reboot, but he ended up not wanting to do that role. But if he's going to get this great part to play over many movies, similar to what Josh Brolin did with the role of Thanos, I think Mads Mikkelsen could return, and I do think he would absolutely kill it in this role. I think he has everything it takes to give the character the dignity and sympathy that we will be in line with his worldview. The character of Doctor Doom has got a tragic backstory, and his story is very interesting and why he feels the way he does about the world. And one of the most interesting things about the character is that he believes that he can save the world and he's the only one who can. And I think in many portrayals he is actually the smartest man in the world. I know they say that it's Reed Richards, but I think Victor Von Doom is actually considered smarter, but because of his arrogance he sort of makes these mistakes and he's flawed, unlike what Reed Richards is. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like that's how the character is sometimes portrayed, in my opinion. Apparently, Marvel is leaning away from Jonathan Majors' role of Kang the Conqueror. We did see him in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and we've most recently seen him in Loki Season 2. But according to some sources, which we can't believe until there's been confirmation from Marvel, but they're moving away from that, and at talks when they were deciding what was going to happen with Jonathan Majors, the character of Doctor Doom was brought up. And the fact that the character could be introduced as early as the Fantastic Four, which should come out in 2025, and then this character could have an arc that leads all the way into the Secret Wars movie that should come out at some point, unless they scrap it and go in a different direction. But I think Mads Mikkelsen could bring what Ian McKellen did for the role of Magneto to the character of Doctor Doom. Whereas I have seen other names sort of thrown around about who should play the character of Doctor Doom, and even in this report there's a chance that Jason Clarke and Ralph Fiennes have both been approached for the role, and I actually think both of those actors will do a great job in the role, but my favourite is Mads Mikkelsen. I really think he was almost born to play this role, and I could see him actually being a bit sceptical to returning because of how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has turned out, unless they give him a boatload of money. Mikkelsen has done a superhero role before, so he might not want to do it again as an actor. And I would have to respect him for that. I mean, just because he's the fan casting and my dream casting to play Doctor Doom in a movie, if he doesn't want to do it, that's perfectly fine with me. I just think a lot of people would be very satisfied with what he could bring to this role. And if Marvel actually pull their finger out and focus on telling great stories and write this character so well, I mean, Doctor Doom is an iconic villain from the comics, so they've got plenty of source material to borrow from that could portray him on the screen in such a great way. I'm quite confident that Marvel have that ability, but I still think that Mads Mikkelsen will probably want to see scripts before signing on. So I do have my fingers crossed that he will get cast in this role, and now that the actors' strike is over and there's talk about the cast being announced in the next few weeks, since some of the deals were signed but they couldn't announce anything because of the strike, this could be imminent. Just on another note in regards to the Fantastic Four movie, the latest rumour is that Pedro Pascal is being eyed to play Reed Richards, and that Javier Bardem is being eyed to play the villain Galactus. I would be relatively happy with these castings going ahead. Pedro Pascal's not someone I considered for the role at first, and I do think he is in a lot of content at the moment, and to borrow from another Marvel movie, I don't think he should overextend himself. But as with all internet news, people can just make up this and, you post it on a website, other people pick it up and report it, and it becomes fact for a while. But maybe none of this is true at all. But I could see that Marvel has met with actors again and again because, actors are still looking for work and want to work, so they will meet with studios to discuss roles. But like I said, I think this is stressed that this is just a rumour at the moment, but I do really hope it's true that Mads Mikkelsen ends up getting cast as Doctor Doom. And, you know, the Pedro Pascal thing, I'm perfectly happy with that, and I could see it working really well. So, who would you like to see portray Doctor Doom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And do you think some actors are stepping away from the MCU now? It's clearly not as appealing to be in the MCU as it was 10 years ago. So please let me know in the comments below who you'd like to see portray Doctor Doom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward, and whether you're happy with Pedro Pascal and Javier Bardem being cast in their respective roles that I've just mentioned. Let me know in the comments below. Please give this video a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please click the bell icon to receive notifications for all of my videos. Thanks for tuning in.